we right here, we back live again. Coop, man, we have a lot of things to address today because I think that with the new review that you just put up on according to hiphop.com, we have had some time to mull over this new Nas effort, King's Disease 2, and you gave it a 5 out of 5. Classic album.
It is, Mike. I mean, it's a masterful record. I mean, it's plain and simple. Anybody with good hip hop ears can hear that this is one of our all-time greats, making one of his all-time great albums. I mean, classic.
And one of the things that you covered in the review was the fact that yes, it's been a big space of time, a span of time since one of his seminal records or highly regarded records in Godson, and you can't really think of too many people in music that have taken that 19-year break and been able to come back with such a quality record and shit damn near a classic with, no skips.
I find it to be a no skips player, which is kind of funny to say. Like a lot of our classic albums aren't no skip players. A lot of our classic albums are classic to us because of the feeling and because of like the gravity of some of the songs that can be found within the project that just really strike a chord and never really let go for you.
Okay, well, yeah.
This album for me was an album that was a great way to contextualize and put his other projects in proper perspective. It's like, okay, you should be able to look at King's Disease 2 and understand that Life is Good isn't as great as you thought that it was, like I wrote in the review. Like King's Disease 2 is proof that Life is good and has great moments, but not really as great as people were saying. What really happened was Mike, that when Life is Good came out, that was a decade gap between Godson.
Right.
That's what I was trying to contextualize. So imagine somebody that's writing this review that maybe doesn't get hip to Nas till 2003, 2004.
Well, that's true. To kind of piggyback off of that and what we're talking about today, I know people are probably going to be looking at this like, damn, they talked about Nas last week. You know what I mean? But I think we need to cover this because Pitchfork Media just recently put out their review, and we put out our review yesterday as well, and trashed the effort. And we're gonna go over some of those points. And in the meantime, anybody that's watching this on Facebook after the fact, make sure you go on the YouTube and subscribe to the According to Hip Hop YouTube channel so you can actually join in live. And we're also welcoming everybody into the room so they can kind of chime in too and talk about this with us. But one of the main criticisms that I saw on this Pitchfork Media review that was written by Stephen Curse, it was one of those things where it was like even the criticisms, first of all, he gave it a 6. Let me go to that screen. He gave it a 6.1 out of 10. And first of all, I don't see how that was warranted, and I don't think that the brother did a good job in that review of actually explaining why this was a 6.1. One of the main criticisms that I saw was the fact that the content, the subject matter of Nas speaking about where his life is in the current moment. What were some of the things that you got out of this Pitchfork Media review that gave Nas a 6.1 out of 10 for King's Disease 2?
So, first of all, as somebody who also writes reviews, I want to show Mr. Kirk some actual respect first for his article. I did read it multiple times, and I've read some of his other stuff. He is a really good writer, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
His style, his command of words, his knowledge of words, his stylistic flow of writing. He checks a lot of boxes as a writer. So this is not any sort of attack about his writing skill or level or style. I find, Mike, if you want to be technical about it, his article is actually more well written on a technical level than mine. You get what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I feel what you're saying. As a writer's
He,
critique, and that's big
right,
props.
right, Mike. I mean, he also probably didn't write it in 2 hours like I did, and then just like go over it for an hour and then send it to one other person, like to go,
Right,
like a print.
right,
So our process was a little different as far as getting this article out because we felt the need to about this happening again.
right.
And so I just want to say that about him as a writer, like you know what I mean, like respect. He's a dope ass writer. You know what I'm saying?
I,
But go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think more so with the missteps, and again, the way the article was written, and like you said, you could tell that he's a writer and knows how to write. You know what I mean? But I just don't think that he was the right person for this assignment, and
Right.
it doesn't. Done a little bit of background. Here's the brother right here was Stephen Curse. You could tell that he's not. Yeah, he probably, like you said, came around maybe around the Godson time of Nas. He probably isn't someone that grew up to Nas's music in that way, which is fine because I'm not saying you can't review anything if you didn't come up in that era. I'm sure if Rakim came out with a dope album now, I would be able to listen to it as a hip hop fan and be able to critique it. But I also do think that it's notable that he gave Nasir the same rating, the exact same rating that he gave this album. And some of the critiques that I noticed on his review.
On which one?
No. I got the Pitchfork one up. I don't have the Nasir one up. But some of his critiques on this were, it sounds like he's introducing himself at a corporate luncheon. So he was talking about Nas's line. He said, the mogul talks, Nas mogul talk is mostly a highlight reel. Money off of tech, pushing a Tesla, roll up a fresh one. It's one IPO to the next one. He raps on Store Run, mechanically referencing Illmatic. It sounds like he's introducing himself at a corporate luncheon. And I find it very interesting that for some reason, maybe some journalists in certain generations don't find talking about closing business deals and creating businesses and creating a better life for yourself as exciting hip-hop music. And I think there's something to be said about that.
So let's bring up the Noster review again.
Okay.
Which literally got the same rating as King's Disease 2, and he wrote that review as well, okay? So there's something very lazy about that. Let's just go ahead and call that what it is.
Right.
And that's what I mean when I said I'm not going to get on him as a writer, but I am going to get on him about some other things. That's lazy to give Nasir a 6.1 and then 3 years later give King's Disease a 6.1. That means you're not trying and you kind of mailed this in. So as a writer, Mike, you pick up on nuances of different things. I know you do as well. And this recent article, when I read it, the review on King's Disease 2, like his tone and his style kind of felt to me, it's like, you want to do the Ye review, but you can't count on Ye. So you mailed this shit in. And it's funny because on the Nasir review, let me go to this. This is what he calls some of Nas's work on Nasir. He says, Nas sounds less like a street preacher touting with conviction and urgency and more like an online commenter, an online commenter shitposting in a search of joy and entropy. It's not quite trolling, but there's an abandon to his claims, a lack of consideration. It's lazy writing. So I want to go to that last part that he said. It's a lack of consideration. It's lazy writing. Well, that's what his review of King's Disease 2 is. It's a lack of consideration and it's lazy writing.
I don't think he said anything complimentary about Nas in 2 reviews. And honestly, we've had a previous show, and I know that I joke all the time about you being a Nas super fan and thinking Nas can do no wrong on any level. But we critique things, based on, we try to be as balanced as possible, and we also have the interaction of the people that helps us be balanced. And last week, everybody told me I was tripping when I was tripping. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, so you're telling me on these 2 efforts that there's nothing Nas did that you liked. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like everything in his reviews of Nas is like, it's like he's coming at Nas. And it's interesting that you would think that he wrote that Rolling Stone review that came out last year about the first King's Disease when they labeled it the most misogynist album in decade or something like that. It's like, what is people's problem with Nas?
Right. So listen to the byline that Pitchfork allowed to slide through on 2018 for Nasir. Like, listen to this. Mm-hmm. No longer able to summon his mythical sense of storytelling, Nas sounds lost on his 11th studio album. Kanye's prediction doesn't help either. So let's stop for a second. Like, this is what I mean about the culture. Like, who is Pitchfork, like, to even, like, you get what I'm saying?
To like, even have the gravitas to continuously criticize one of hip hop's greats. Like, they don't, because even with the Source, right? Because we talked about Source ratings, I think in the last show, and how it became the Bible and it kind of skewed some of our thoughts. But they actually had stake and weight in the game through other reviews, through other albums that they got right, to even have that level of credibility. Like, who has Pitchfork reviewed where we're like, yeah, man, they got that one right, to the point where they're able to trash Nas albums that are dope efforts?
No, and Mike, who are y'all to do that and drop that article on hip hop's birthday yesterday?
Right.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
Well, you know,
really, no. I want to say this quick too. I want to be very clear about this. If they would have done this to American Gangster and the Blueprint 3, I would feel the same exact way. You don't treat your legends this way.
I mean, again, a bad album is a bad album, right?
There's a tone that I don't like about it. You feel
right. That's where I'm coming from with it too. Again, like you said, there's a tone here.
We're still looking for that motherfucker from Rolling Stone. Yeah, he can come on here too.
And even this statement, and this goes to the last paragraph, and this is on the current review of King's Disease 2. He said there's a hint of survival's guilt in Nas's fixation on the past. Have you heard Illmatic? That's what Nas is. He's a nostalgic MC. Like, he talks about where he's been and correlates it to where he's going. But I agree with you. It's the tone. It's like, okay.
That's why I wrote the review and talked about Nas's nostalgic sense and how it's one of the key points and why people gravitate to him. It's almost like the writer is unaware of who Nas is. And when you're writing in this culture about this culture and you don't know who Nas is, you shouldn't take on the task. You're not the person for the job.
This is the writer on the screen, by the way. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got the writer on the screen.
Your writing skill, this has to do with like your writing will. And here's what I mean, Mike, when I give everybody the same weight. Like, Mike, I know Nas's catalog well, so I don't need to go back and listen to all of Nas's shit. But I don't know Migos' catalog, so I actually spend more time listening to the Migos when I'm doing the review for Culture 2 than I'm going back and going through Nas's projects. You get it? Right. I don't love Migos nowhere near that I love Nas, but out of respect for the craft, Mike, I sit up here and I make sure that I go through all their stuff before I go do a review, because I know I don't play their stuff like that, and I need to give them fair weight, fair shake, and contextualization. And this piece lacks all of that. And so,
let me go to the chat real quick.
Hip-hop's birthday?
Yeah, right.
On hip-hop's birthday? I'm going to say that again.
Alex Caldwell says, people's problem with Nas is the same with LeBron. They hate when you're great for a long period of time. Other comment, I can't pronounce your names, like the Ghettos. It says they hate Nas just like the guy on with the cap on hates Eminem. So it's just it's just life, and I love Nas. I mean, listen, man. I don't hate Eminem, and and I think I said this last week.
I just want to Mike. I wanted to just let you know it's too late. Everybody know about you.
Right. And, I don't hate Eminem. I would love for Eminem to come through with a dope verse, but he just doesn't do it. You know what I'm saying? I think we all, And I'm not the only person out here on the internet talking about it. I think Daylight, the freestyle MC, you know what I'm saying, has been in hella URL battles. Shout out to Daylight. He got on live talking about how Eminem's verse was a misstep. So it's not just me. And the fact that you get on
Mike.
What?
I just realized something. I want to bring something up. How old is hip hop? How old was hip hop yesterday?
48 years old. What up, Mark Wright? Got Mark Wright in the room.
Mike, listen to what I'm about to say. When you're talking about Nas, if hip hop has been around for 48 years, we're talking about somebody that's been around for 30 of them.
Yeah, and he's about damn near the same age as hip hop.
That makes him required hip hop reading if you're going to review hip hop albums. Period.
And shout out to Mark Wright, man. Mark is the one that actually sent me this Pitchfork review, and gave me a heads up on it.
I'd like to thank you. Mike sent me that article at 9 o'clock in the morning yesterday and pissed me off, and I've been pissed off since.
One of the and I think it's interesting that you said the tone, and this part of the review is what really kind of signifies the tone to me, where he says, let's see, now pressure. All right, he says, only island my niggas knew was Rikers and Staten, he says on 40 side. A line that's neither clever nor true. His native Queensbridge neighborhood is across from Roosevelt Island, from an island called Manhattan. Listen, man. I think that, again, this is tone. How you going to sit here and tell this man what his experiences were and what his people knew in those housing projects of Queensbridge? Now, I understand you want to be tongue-in-cheek and all that, but I don't think that in a review is the time to do it. When someone's expressing what their upbringing was and what islands that their people knew, you want to give Nas a geography lesson, or you want to give niggas in Queensbridge projects a geography lesson? That lets me know you've never been there.
First of all, you ain't never about to step in the bridge and do that.
Yeah, I want to see this guy go into the bridge. Respectfully, Steven, I want to see this guy go into the bridge and tell these guys, give them a geography lesson on islands.
Mike, that ain't even how it go. You and me ain't going to the bridge without like a cosign. That ain't how it go. No, you don't go in the projects and hoods like that and like just stop that. But here's what I will say. Mm-hmm. You're showing an example of how he put his writing style and who he is as a writer ahead of the artist. And that's not what you're supposed to do when you're reviewing an artist the stature of Nas. Like, you need to be talking about the artist. Damn your writing style.
It's like, again, I don't know if you're looking for punchlines, but I think that even the critiques are like the critique that he had on Store Run about him, advertising what he does and what he's been up to and talking about IPOs. What hip hop artist, period, doesn't talk about where their life is, doesn't brag to a certain extent, or uplift what they have going on? What great hip hop album doesn't do that at all? You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw one of his, because I went back and looked at a few of his reviews, and this writer, Stephen Kirk for Pitchfork Media, he writes for others as well. He's from Atlanta. He's from, I think he's from Riverdale, I think it said. And he went to school in New York a little bit and lives in D.C. I would love, for us to sit here and talk about why you dislike the album so much and real criticisms of it. But what I'm thinking is like, dude, I see all your other reviews, and the highest rating I saw him give was trap music. So I guess he retroactively went back and reviewed trap music. He gave that T.I.'s trap music. He gave that a 8.6. And I'm thinking maybe that's more so where his generation is. Maybe he's from Atlanta. He holds that high. I hold that album high. I'm from Atlanta as well. But Mike, there's so much bragging in that record. It's so much boastering and all that. So what are we talking about?
I mean, Mike, and if we want to be truthful, I would tell you that I think rating trap music 8.6 is a little low for trap music. That would be more like a 9.1 or 2 for me.
It's T.I.'s best effort.
That's what I'm saying. That's more like somewhere in the like low to mid 9 point something based on like their rating scale. If we're actually being honest, so he didn't rate that properly.
Especially if you retroactively go back and rate it, because it's higher. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't know when trap music came out the impact it would have. We just knew it was a dope record.
There were a lot of songs that came out on trap music that we just thought were dope singles for the time that turned into classic like T.I. songs, right? So it's very problematic, Mike.
But with that being said, and I bring that up in the fact that, you know, there's braggadocious stuff all over trap music. You know what I'm saying? I guess you would say I'm just doing my job as more introspective T.I., right? But if you talk about Rubber Band Man, Wild as the Taliban, 9 in my right, 45 in my other hand.
24s, anybody? 24s.
Yeah, 24s. I mean, 24s is the first single. So now talking about your IPOs is a problem. Is it the fact that this ain't street shit that makes it less than hip hop? I don't know.
Well, Mike, you want to know what? Here is one of like my personal takeaways and thoughts about this album that I've been holding that I'm going to share right now. To me, and this is how fly Nas sounds on this album to me, he talking shit the way Big would talk if Big was here, Mike.
Right. It puts you in the it puts you in the mind of that.
Big shit, Mike. He on his big shit on King Disease too. Like, he's a fly nigga on this album, Mike.
And it's real life too, you know? Mike, it's not like he's just making it up.
Mike, he ain't never been this fly. I'm trying to tell people, like, even when people followed Nas has never sounded this fly. Yeah. That's why I was like, when he said he the flyest nigga in this rap shit, I'm thinking like, I'm like, you are, because you're the one really out here living this. You really are flying everywhere. You really are getting to this money like this without having to rap. Like,
yeah. And you called it. It's like some James Bond shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mike, he on some black superhero shit right now, and this dude is hating.
It's crazy, man, because it's like, you know, we glorify all the time when rappers want to go out there and aspire to do something and aspire to get to a certain point and kind of try to speak it into existence. But this is actually existing. Now, I could get it if it was corny. It's not coming across as corny, and it's funny because earlier this year, I called Nas out for his verse on Sorry Not Sorry. Jigga too. You called Jigga out for his verse. Those verses got corny parts in them. I could see if this album was full of, you know, Scarface cryptocurrency stuff, but it's not.
Right. Them verses was some mid.
Yeah. Verses was some mid. And we made it very clear. But that's not the case here. And unfortunately, like you said, I want to give a brother props on being a dope writer. First of all, I don't think he was the proper person for Pitchfork to choose to write this. Maybe too young, whatever, or maybe just not in tune. I don't even want to put an age on it. But at the same time, I also feel like you just don't know hip hop, man. I mean, and you know, I know that's a cliche thing to say, but you don't appreciate hip hop. There's nobody out here saying that this Nas album is trash. And it's essentially what he said.
No, he wrong, Mike. But we can't expect him to come on and actually like defend his case when you telling him you don't know hip hop. Apparently,
I mean, no. Look. It appears. All right. Let me rephrase that because I got a little bit in my feelings for a second.
No. I'm in my feelings.
It appears when all you have to say about an effort like this is negative things, it appears that your hip hop knowledge is limited.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Mike Nas been around for 30 years. It does make me question things about his hip-hop knowledge database, and also why Pitchfork obviously seems to look at him as a go-to person to do their hip-hop reviews.
Right.
Let's not put this on the writer. Let's put this on the publication that has editors that is allowing these to pass through as well.
Either the editors, like you said, who allow this to pass through, either they haven't heard the album, don't care to listen to the album, or listen to the album and they heard the same thing.
But they're definitely benefiting. Yeah. But they're definitely benefiting from putting a Nas review up on the day hip hop was born. They're not stupid. That's why I keep on saying that. Like don't sit up there and act like you didn't know what day it was.
We got Shevin Hill says.
We know what you did this summer.
Shevin Hill says the irony in this podcast. What's the irony? Are we gonna bring up Eminem again? Is that what the irony is?
See, this is why I be.
No, I mean, listen, I don't want to make every conversation about the fact that Eminem ain't put out a good album since 2002. You guys know that.
Ridiculously long. Look at what you was.
You guys know that. Like, let's give Nas his flowers, man. And, and again, let's not act like I'm the only person saying this stuff. I don't know if you just saw Charlamagne on one of his podcasts. He was telling a group of people that Young Thug would wash Eminem in the verses. Now, whether that's true or not, the fact that he even says that lets you know where people put Eminem's music.
Thug got some bangers.
He does. I believe Thug will watch Eminem. Whatever, That's not what we're talking about today. But
we're talking. Thug got some bangers.
He got some bangers. I don't know if Hi My Name Is will help him in some of them bangers. But yeah.
It's very problematic.
So he definitely criticized Brunch on Sundays as well.
This is what I like. That's what I'm saying. That's that big shit. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's a record that I would hear Biggie doing if Big was here. I would hear Big like working and blending in well with the younger artists, like on Spicy and like on YKTV. Like, that's what I'm saying. He on some big shit right now. He ain't even on, like. It's not no nasty Nas going on. It's like, I don't know who this dude is. He doesn't I don't know who this guy is. This guy is amazing.
Well, it sounds like this is the problem, period, because we know what Rolling Stone did for the previous King's Disease, and Kez929 says there's a couple of publications that do this every Nas review. They hate every Nas album. He said Hip Hop DX does the same thing with their Nas reviews. And, that's unfortunate because, again, I get it. There has been a history of some inconsistency with some of Nas's efforts, but when he's on a roll, you gotta acknowledge that. And we acknowledged last year that King's Disease was a very good effort, and then the second one is like, whoa, you gotta sit here and embrace when you're in the moment, and when somebody's doing greatness while it happens, or somebody's performing great acts while they happen. We can't wait till 5 years later and it's like, oh man, that shit was underrated. You know what I'm saying?
So Mike, I want you to listen to this. I'm gonna tell you something that I did that I very rarely do anymore due to just like the traumatizing feelings that I get when I play this album. I listened to Nostradamus a few days ago, Mike. And I'm gonna tell you something. Nostradamus is practically pretty much better than everything from 2002 to 2012 from Nas. That's Nas's murky period that I bring up.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think Nostradamus is better than Untitled. It's definitely better than Street's Disciple. I personally think Street's Disciple is his worst effort.
I mean, Nostradamus still does have Come and Get Me, Shoot 'Em Up, Lost Words, and Family with Prodigy. Those are all really good records. Yep. Last Words, the only stellar record of those four. That's the
Last Words is awesome. He got the premiere record on there.
Come and Get Me.
Come and Get Me. Yeah, that's the last time. Is that the last time? No. They worked together on Stillmatic. Yeah.
But Mike, what I realized is that what Nostradamus really did, and here's the really falter of Nostradamus. If you look at the 3 albums before Nostradamus and the 3 albums after, Mike, if Nostradamus is any good, that's the greatest run in hip hop history.
Let's rewind this.
Hold on, look at the 3 albums before Nostradamus, which is Illmatic, It Was Written, and I Am, and the 3 albums after, which is Stillmatic, The Lost Tapes, and Godson.
Kez929 says, no, Untitled and Distant Relatives are dope. Distant Relatives is incredible.
Distant Relatives is better than Nostradamus, but isn't that 2012 though with Life Is Good, or was that before?
I think it might have been slightly before. It's around that period. Don't quote me.
I mean, to me, Distant Relatives is the only thing that he made in that era that me as a Nas fan really even goes back and listens to with some semi-regularity.
I think the Distant Relatives is what kind of helped the resurgence. I think when he got with Damian Marley, even on Damian Marley's record, that
Yeah.
kind of reinvigorated Nas, and he's kind of been on a tear since then. I want to get to this whole notion that Nas continuously gets bad reviews from mainstream media publications. Like, what is this about?
Well, that's what I'm saying, Mike. Like his initial run, like his first 7 projects.
It was 2010. Thank you, Kez929.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. I mean, Mike, if you want to call that, we could actually say the run started right there.
Right.
And that Life is Good, if you really want to call it. So we can go 2002 to 2010 is that murky period, because I like Distant Relatives. For some reason, maybe you want to know it, Mike, and I wasn't listening to a lot of hip hop around that time. I feel like I even got to Distant Relatives a year late, maybe, as a Nas fan, and that's why maybe it feels closer to Life is Good for me.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to express to you, Mike, is that if you look at his first 7 projects, Mike, 5 of them are great or classic. 1 of them is dope, and the other one is Nostradamus. If you don't know that Nas, you can't contextualize his review properly.
Okay, well let me put something out there, maybe conspiracy theorist-esque. Is there a problem with the mainstream media of crowning Nas king? Because it seems like they've always kind of gone around Nas. Like, I know when Rolling Stone did that 4-part cover, they had Jay, Biggie, Eminem, and Tupac. And it seems like the mainstream, and just recently Nas won his first ever Grammy. I mean, is there a problem that the mainstream media has with crowning Nas king? And maybe that has something to do with the fact that these reviews that clearly the public doesn't agree with continuously are able to go through these editors on these mainstream publications, and they assign Nas albums to guys like, Stephen Kirk, who clearly had nothing good to say about Nas.
So, Mike, let's really talk about who Nas is and where this culture is going. The guys who came before Nas, I mean, and we kind of seen it for ourselves, Mike, they're known, but they're still kind of just hip-hop legend, roots of this shit known. Like, our culture knows them with fervor, but Pac, Nas, and Big and Jay up this ante a level in terms of the stardom. And here's the thing. He's always been the least charismatic and the least hit-making of the 4 of them. And actually, Mike, probably even more so than Pac, probably just due to over a course of time, Mike, Nas's rhetoric is extremely pro-black and anti-establishment.
I was going to go there. That's where I was going to go next.
Involved with the establishment. And I'm going to tell you something a lot of people don't notice about Nas. Nas just started playing the corporate game about 5 or 6 years ago and entertaining this shit. And I think all those years that he did do something to him industry-wise and corporate-wise. And that is part of the reason I think he got into the tech business, was to kind of work his way around that and force his way back in.
I agree with everything you're saying. The people in the chat agree with you as well. Junior, Samex.
Mike, it ain't no conspiracy when you can just see the fuckery plain and clear.
Junior says King's Disease 2 is a top 5 Nas album. Kez929 says something deeper with Nas in these publications. R. Stewart 1000, shout out to R. Stewart 1000. He said it's a problem because the music industry agenda does not line up with Nas's lyrics and content. You remember, and I know you remember very well, when Nas was going against the Machine and Jay was a part of the Machine. And when Nas got on Power 105 after Hot 97 wouldn't allow him to do his set that was hanging Jigga at Summer Jam, but they allowed Jigga to go do something else previously. But he went on Power 105, and I will always remember this interview. It's on YouTube somewhere. Anybody could go look it up. Nas Power 105, I think it was 2001-ish or whatnot. This is when he put Nori on blast, said Nori need to step his game up lyrically, said the same thing about Cam. And I remember him saying that, telling people, don't let radio and these media outlets control hip-hop and what you think about hip-hop. And I believe Nas believed that wholeheartedly. I believe he still believes that, and they know he still believes that. and they try to make sure that they're able to somehow minimize who he is in the culture because they know they can't control Nas. Nas doesn't care about all that other stuff. Nas cares about being, getting the message out. And he made it very clear then. And, that's why I don't have a problem when Nas doesn't, quote unquote, speak out. He's told us everything. He's taken the lashes for it. And he's just now recovering. And like you said, been able to get in other avenues of business where he doesn't have to totally depend on music money. So if you really want to know what Nas thinks, you can go back.
No, he doesn't have to depend on music money at all. Yeah. At this point. But here's what I'm trying to say about like the thing with Nas is like you have to understand like the things that he says and the way. Like Mike, he did an interview. Remember the last interview he did with the Breakfast Club, and they talk about him being blackballed. Like, are people attempting to blackball him? And he kind of told you, like he kind of said it without saying it. It's like, well, I'm Nas. Like, they tried that. That didn't work. I still won. I beat the machine because I'm Nas.
His output, what he means to the culture and what, his fan base and the people who love hip hop and his fans kept him around, man. You know what I'm saying? His fans were always going to rock with him.
We sure did.
Listen, man, I keep it 100%, man. You know how I feel about Jay as an artist. Jay tried to take him out the game, and the game tried to help Jay take him out the game. And that and the fact that these guys, these media outlets are still writing trash reviews about his efforts that are clearly good efforts, good to great efforts, it lets you know they don't want Nas here.
I mean, Mike, and when I mean this been going on for a minute, it's been like something with Nas.
And it's something that needed to be talked about. We had to speak on this today.
Mike, I'm going to go back to something. Anybody who's known me for a long time knows this. The first music review that I ever did, I was 15 years old. I was in high school at West Charlotte. My first assignment for the school newspaper was to pick an R&B album and a rap album and review them. I did Tony Braxton's Secrets. I did Nas's It Was Written. I remember Vibe's review of It Was Written. They tried to shit on It Was Written even then.
Wow.
Mike, the Vibe review of It Was Written, they shitted on Illmatic and said Illmatic wasn't as good as these three albums. I remember this specifically. I'll never forget it. It said it's not as good as Paid in Full. It said it's not as good as By Any Means Necessary, and it's not as good as The Greatest Adventures of Slick Rick. They said that about Illmatic doing the It Was Written review. This shit been going on. Illmatic's better than all those albums, and it's only a conversation with Paid in Full.
That's true. Kaz929 says, go look at how horrible Rolling Stone's King's Disease review was from last year. He said the title of Rolling Stone's article was King's Disease Gets Derailed by Petty Misogyny. And this was just last year.
No. I think he didn't watch us, fam. We roasted them for that last year. I told you, we still looking for them. Like, they can pull up, too, and catch some of this.
I mean, I would love to, like I said, I think the issue is more so with the publications because I would love to have a straight-up conversation with the writers about these efforts. And the fact that, and you said something in the beginning of this show, it's about the tone. Like, you can review an album and it get a low rating, and you can kind of break that down and why. But everything about the tone of this review was like, listen, I ain't come to play with Nas. I'm going to sit here and down any and everything he's ever done. They're sitting here making you think talking about doing big businesses and IPOs is a bad thing in hip-hop. He even clowned the fact that, just something that Nas probably said in jest that his friends didn't know Roosevelt Island was an island. Like, you understood what he was saying in that line. What he was saying in that line, metaphorically, was the only islands that they knew was rap shit with Wu-Tang and going to jail. That's what that means. And you want to sit here and take it in a literal sense. Talk about Manhattan Island and Roosevelt Island. Stop it. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, Nas is getting an unfair shake out here. And, I understand why Nas doesn't do interviews now. I really do.
That's why, Mike, I'm going to say this again. when Vibe was busy throwing Big and Puff and Pac and Suge and Snoop all over their covers and giving these dudes all the praise in the world and ramping this shit up, they shitted on Illmatic in the process of shitting on It Was Written.
Well, you know what? Let's not even just keep it to that, because we talked about this, I want to say a couple of weeks ago. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago because Source Awards, they actually celebrated their, what was that, the 26th anniversary of the 95 Source Awards, Epic 95 Source Awards. Illmatic and Nas won nothing in that 95 Source Awards. Illmatic won nothing in that 95 Source Awards. Even Biggie was on camera before the show saying, I think I should get Album of the Year. Nas should get Lyricist of the Year. He got that. Big said that.
Album of the Year or Lyricist of the Year.
No, I feel you. But even Big conceded to Lyricist of the Year. Nas didn't win anything at that award show. You put out Illmatic and you didn't win. And the Source magazine gave him the 5 mics. They gave him 5 mics and he got nothing at that show.
Mike, so let's talk this GOAT shit, because I'm about to bring up somebody in a second who's not hip hop, but related in the sphere always, because of what he did and what he represented. Nas is a threat to the establishment of hip hop and a threat to all of his competitors, and that's why the closeout has been on since its inception, because he had, from the moment people heard Illmatic, to every competitor, he's the ultimate problem. To the establishment, because of his rhetoric and his stature in our eyes, he's the ultimate problem. That's why all of this has occurred. But also, too, Mike, this is what I'm saying. He also happens to be the greatest MC of all time right now, currently. And when you're doing his review, you need to watch your tone and use your inside voice.
You know, it's they have gone out their way in this man's illustrious career to make sure that he's not credentialized by any of corporate America. You know what I mean? Like, he's not artistically credentialized. Again, he just won his first Grammy last year. And and you know, we always thought that was a big thing or whatever, but that is just the tip of the iceberg here. The fact that these media publications continuously trash his efforts that are even good efforts, and the fact that the Source magazine, who gave him 5 mics for Illmatic, which is still one of the greatest hip-hop albums ever, regardless of who you're talking to, he got shut out in the 95 Source Awards that were for the year of 1994. How do you justify giving somebody... How you get the scoring title, win the finals, and all that in a year, and then you don't get any MVPs?
No, Mike. I mean, no. It's cool. We just gonna play the game now. We gonna keep on shitting on them the way they keep shitting on Nas. Like I said, them motherfuckers at Rolling Stone that did the King's Disease last year can come get some of this too, because we reached out and didn't get a response. We ain't forgot. Y'all not about to hijack this culture. Come get some. The writers, the editors, who the fuck ever, whenever, however, wherever.
My thing is, man, just to at least disguise your review. You want to give it a 6.1? What's that?
Phone check, Mike. It's a phone check. We taking their time.
Well, you know, it's one thing that you sit there and give it a 6.1. You want to do that? Fine. At least dress up your review like you actually listened to it, right? Like, the tone of everything that was said in this review was negative. It was negative from the jump, and it was condescending. Again, that whole Roosevelt Island thing was condescending from the jump. Just let us know. Y'all don't fuck with Nas. Just don't do a review at all. You know what I mean? I think that's even more egregious, the fact that you want to do a review and start to mold a public perception of something that isn't. You want people to think this album is bad, so they won't either listen to it or they'll go in with this mindset right when they listen to it, which is even more dangerous.
A classic album on the day hip hop was born.
Yeah, man, that's egregious, man. And again, I don't blame Steven. I don't blame Steven. You know, Steven was just doing his job.
That's what I mean. Like I said, he's a great writer. This feels mailed in I'm gonna take issue with the establishment the way that Nas would. And here's the guy that I wanted to bring up. You know who he's starting to remind me of, Mike? He's starting to remind me of my favorite artist ever, who he mentioned on this album and actually referenced himself to. He is kind of becoming hip hop's version of Prince, and I don't mean musically.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense that he's like, you know, kind of like anti-establishment, even though part of the establishment, but able to maneuver around it in a way that very few had, and successfully, and kind of created his own empire out of it, very much like the deceased.
He's been like, anti-establishment, but they always thought that they were able to control what, he was doing, right? Like they could control what deals he had. But he quietly became a mogul, and didn't have to do what a lot of other people did to get to that point. He just did it through, just continuous work, grassroots. And like you said, his current run that he's on with the Nasir, King's Disease, and King's Disease 2 kind of lets you know that he's in more of a power position now where he can do what he wants. He's comfortable. And he's putting out the music that I think he's always wanted to. Because if the corporate structure was stifling him from the jump, imagine the stuff that they weren't allowing him to put out. That's why he has the lost tapes. That's why people talk about I Am not coming out the way it did. And I don't care what anybody says. When they talk about bootlegs and stuff being leaked and all that, they leak it. They leak it. There's no mystery man that goes out there in the studio and leaks this stuff to the world. The labels leak the things.
I mean, no. Like hip hop was in a different place when Illmatic and Ready to Die came out. Like there's stories about big dubbing tapes of Ready to Die for niggas in Brooklyn.
Of course, I'm sure that happens. But we talk about on a quality level and it affecting sales on a big level. They send these actual disc and the high quality versions to the publications because they get it first. Remember when the Source had to review things, they would get albums a week or two before. And if these people, like you said, Vibe, they out here shitting on an album that shouldn't be shitted on, imagine what they're doing when they're getting these promo copies. Or what Mike, they're getting the license to do.
No, Mike, that's what I mean. We got to start checking it. Everybody can get it. That's why I bought up Vibe. Like, ain't nobody, no, you can catch this one. You can catch it. You're wrong. You've been wrong for a long time, actually. Think about it. How you going to start off a review of another classic album that's not as classic as the previous by explaining why that album, although it's a classic, it really doesn't hold up to other classics from a previous. Like, who the hell? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
That's how you start off a review.
Well, in this current review, Pitchfork says, Nas, emboldened by his longevity in the rap game and successful business ventures, invites listeners to a masterclass Escobar, as he puts it in EPMD 2. This rap elder template fits a Nas who seems to be more stimulated by his investment opportunities than a sick snare. But the songs aren't illustrative.
So, Mike,
what makes you? Did any listener get the fact that he's more in tune with his business ventures than actually making good music? Because I think on a production level, when you want to talk about a sick snare or whatever, I think that this is probably one of the best production jobs anyone's done on any Nas album since Illmatic. Excuse me.
I mean, I bought that up in the review, Mike.
So he's in tune with music. You know what I mean? He's just talking about something else and trying to skew the listener in the first paragraph that don't bother listening to this because he's really not on his music shit. He's really on his business shit.
It's the best beat break rapper ever. He's talking about a snare.
Yeah, and you know that he, had something to do with the beat break that's being on there.
That's what I mean when I'm talking about it's mailed in. Like you know who Nas is? You talking about a snare about the best beat break rapper ever? Like, what are you doing?
What are we talking about? But yeah,
the rhetoric. The rhetoric of the article is just like you don't know who Nas is.
Let me go to the comments real quick. I didn't mean to cut you off. I Am Rodriguez says he's an intellectual and the system doesn't want to praise him, and Nas gives hope to the less fortunate. Nas is definitely anti-establishment. That's the reason why he had beef with a few gangster rappers when he stated that all MCs make I'm sorry. He stated that all MCs make conscious and real music. I mean, listen, man. I think it's even more clear now. We're seeing a pattern that no one really gets behind Nas on a corporate level. And Nas has been carried for the past 20 years, I would say, by his fans, by you guys, by us, by hip hop. Because they've been wanting him out of the game. But people wouldn't allow that. They even tried to help Jay cheat. Let's just keep it real.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm a Jay-Z fan.
For a long time, they tried to push Nas out like after Nostradamus,
Ether wasn't supposed to happen.
No, Ether was never supposed to happen.
And you hear those stories about how they tried to fix the phone votes and all that stuff, and the people was calling in a Hot Nas 7. They didn't even need people to call in. Like, that didn't even need to happen. The name of the show that Hot Nas 7 and Angie and them did was The Takeover.
So, Mike, and people who are boxing fans are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. When Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman in the rope-a-dope, nobody thought that Ali had a chance. Now, if you look at the fundamental skill of Ali, Ali was clearly the most skilled boxer anybody had ever seen. To have that size and that speed and that movement and to be that fundamentally and technically sound, to have that reach and to have that jab, he has all the tools, just like Nas. Much like Jay was in his prime, George Foreman was a whole beast of an animal. I told people like for whatever I think about Nas, the only thing that rivals Jay's peak is Rakim's peak in terms of the level that it was at, in terms of what people were saying. You know what I'm saying? Right. It was like that if you were there. And I'm a Nas fan, and I'm telling you that. So it's probably it's probably one of the most 5 unexpected moments in hip hop history. That's how big Jay. That's how.
Like I told you, when I heard The Takeover, I thought Nas was done, especially coming off from Nostradamus.
I told you, as a Nas fan, those 3 months between The Takeover and Ether were like the worst months as a hip hop fan of my life. I mean, I got it from everywhere, from every side.
Now, let me ask you this, man. Speaking of conspiracy theories and all that stuff, do you think it's a coincidence that Nas's worst period of music, I guess we would say, is when he did sign to Def Jam? And when Jay did sign him on, do you think that he was getting what he needed to make the best music he could, or he couldn't make it in that space, or was he set up for failure over there, in your opinion?
No, in all honesty, I'm going to tell you what really happened. I mean, Nas is obviously somebody that's very artistically inclined and works off inspiration. And truthfully, I'm going to tell you how I think Nas looks at things. And I don't know this for certain, but this is just my take on it. Nas looks at Pac and Big as his contemporaries and the guys he came in the game with. And so those guys are gone. So Nas truly does look at himself like a loner. And so I think the material is disinterested after the battle with Jay, because after coming in the game with Big and Pac, and then after dealing with Jay in such a manner, I think he was just totally disinterested and secure with his place for a while, quite frankly. That's why I said, if you actually go look at that run from 94 to 2002, Mike, if Nostradamus is good, it's the best 7-album run ever. Any way you want to toss it in hip hop.
Well, I want to go back to what you just said too, man, because I do think that kind of furthers the notion that I think that his partnership with Damian Marley reinvigorated him, and it gave him something new to be inspired by. And ever since they've made that connection, he's been on track, making some really quality efforts.
So I'm some notes, because when you said that, I wrote down 2010 and I put a star by it, because I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because here was the thing about it. With Life is Good comes out in 2012. He still sounds a little uneven to me on tracks that aren't in his pocket. Mike, I brought up Accident Murderers. It's he had no business putting Accident Murderers on there, because Accident Murderers is only good because Ross murdered that verse. The beat's not great. His performance, I'm not saying it's mailed in. It's just not something to write home about, Mike. Mm-hmm. But you want to know when I really felt like he turned the corner and I got interested again? when he dropped Major Key in 2016. When I heard the way that he rode that beat, I was kind of like, huh. I was like, that's interesting. I was like, his flow a little, got a little more agility to it than you're probably used to from Nas. And it's not like there's anything wrong with Nas's flow, because it's a classic flow, but he's never been considered delivery-wise to be Big or Jay.
Well, I mean, you got that line, and it's funny with their battle with Takeover and Ether. I think there are a lot of lines that stick with people, right? You got that Eminem murdered you on your own shit that stuck with Jay, and I think that line that Jay did, like, switch up your flow, your shit is garbage. You know what I'm saying? That I think that stuck with the hip hop listener. Like, yeah, man, he need to switch his flow up. And I think a lot of this, you know what I'm saying?
No. When you're in a fight and you land hits, like, they gonna stay and people gonna remember, like, those blows that you landed, like,
Yeah, and that was one of them. Malcolm Maddox says Rolling Stone put out a list of the top 100 artists all time. They listed Curtis Mayfield at 100. The nerve of them. Dio says, I agree, Mike. We need something new, and investment is needed in a new generation. All of us. I agree with that, too. Ellie says, Nas went to war with every big rapper of his era, and all their fans turned on him. He's always had to deal with the disdain from Pac fans, Biggie fans, Jay fans, and Mobb Deep fans. That's interesting, because I do agree with that. I think fans start picking sides, right? And I know that we hear those stories. We hear those stories about Pac and Nas making up, but I think that the records on Machiavelli, they stick. They last longer than the stories that we didn't hear. You know what I mean?
So let's go to Machiavelli right quickly, Mike. When he's talking about Nas, the alleged ringleader. Well, let's talk about how and why that happened, because he just discussed it on Death Row East.
Right.
And Snoop is giving credence to this. And he said it. Oh, Nas and his crew that night could have shut all them West Coast dudes down, and Nas is the one that kept the peace. Like, Snoop has said this. Like, them Queensbridge dudes that was with Nas that night, they was the dudes in New York that was really out there about that life that night, and Nas is the one that shut that down. That's confirmed from Snoop. And so when he's talking about it on Death Row East, understand this has been confirmed by other people. Like Mike, I've heard the stories. They was out there, they say like 50, 60, 70 deep from the bridge, they say, Mike. Like, Mike, how about this? When Jay talking about New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the buildings, they was about to crush the buildings that night live if it wasn't for Nas and the bridge. How about that?
Well, that, obviously Pac fans who, listen to Pac, they feel a way about Nas, boom. Biggie, I wouldn't say so much. Now, Jay fans, if you're a hardcore Jay fan, you might not really be into Nas like that.
Is that Pac reference comes from a place like he wasn't necessarily I'm trying to say that to say he wasn't really necessarily talking shit about Nas. He was actually big up in Nas when he was talking about Nas, the alleged ringleader, because what he's saying is Nas is the only one that really showed up there crewed up that was really, you know what I'm saying?
Well, he did put it out there that, that whole thing where, Nas, what's the quote? Where, he did the whole it was written thing.
Nas, your whole damn style was bitten, and in the background it'd be like, sound like Rakim.
Yeah, that and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The fact that, this little nigga Nas think he, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he taking his shots, but what I'm saying is that night, Pac got some respect from the West and from...
I understand what you're saying. I'm just talking about... I understand what you're saying. You're talking about the facts. I'm talking about how the average listener perceives what they hear on record and how it stays with you. Just like I was just saying, the whole... Eminem murdered you on your own shit. That stays with people, and it's in their subconscious mind when they hear certain things,
So listen to the people that, like, Nas is beefed with. Pac, Big on the low, Jay and Cam in public, 50 in public. Mike, who else can say that they survived that?
That's true. It's true. I mean,
Who
yeah.
gonna
And
survive who gonna survive
Mob
Pac,
Deep too.
Big, and Jay? Unless you, Mike. That's what I'm saying. Is like he does goat shit on the low that you don't realize. Ain't nobody else surviving Pac, Big, and Jay coming at you except for Nas.
I think he does goat shit that we take for granted. You know what I'm saying? And he's really the last man standing when it comes to those things. And I love Jay and I love what Jay's been able to do. But Jay didn't come around to 96 and Jay didn't really become a major player in the game until 98. Nas has been that since 94. And we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, Mike. Like I said, I mean, that murky period's not good. We talking about, I mean, I thought it was a 10-year period of like kind of subpar music. It's more comforting to know that it was only 8, but it is still 8 years of what for him it would be considered subpar music. So we still have to be objective. But that review wasn't objective. These reviews about Nas aren't objective, and we're going to start checking them every time they don't give legends their proper in this game.
I think that, there's another article that could be written, man, like, why does everybody hate Nas? You know what I'm saying? Like, and just pull in all of these statements and these inserts of these reviews. Because the stuff that the guy said in the review, it was like, these are unnecessary criticisms. You know what I mean?
Bring up that Vibe review again from 96, Mike, because it's almost like I'm bringing up that Vibe review from 96 because it's like this behavior got grandfathered in from our side when they did that.
Yeah, and nobody ever checked it. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody ever checked it. I remember reading that review. I was like, that's part of why I wanted to do the It Was Written review when I got to high school. That was my first year of high school. Like, It Was Written came out the summer before I started high school. And part of why I wanted to do that review, because I was like, they don't know what, like, I remember they talked about, I'll never forget this line. They're talking about Nas's verbiage on Take It in Blood, Pistol Whips You, but something about the beat and and I'm like, did you just hear him rhyme on Take It in Blood? That's literally one of like the best lyrical performances ever, especially at the time that it came out. And the best that y'all could do was tell me, oh, well, the beat really ain't where it needed to be. And I'm like, these dudes don't know nothing about rap, Mike, because even then I knew part of why like he did Take It in Blood, Mike. He's from the bridge. Who's he sampling on Take It in Blood? I made it like that. I want it like that. I'm living like that. That's G-Rap. He's paying homage to his hood. And so when Vibe took that song and dissected it like that, I immediately looked at them. It's like, y'all for pay, not for culture. That was in 96.
It's wild, man. And it's like, again, it's clear that they don't want Nas to succeed. They never did.
They don't want Nas to be number one, and he still ended up being number one.
Yeah. They were picking anybody possible to be over Nas. Yeah.
Like when I mean anybody 50, 10. Who got next? Kiss. Who? No. We like meth more. Like, no. Like, that's cool. Who here?
No, you're right. And you know what? Once again, I got to give it to the fans, because the fans have finally, when we got the internet and, social media, which has really helped kind of cut through the bullshit. And the fans have spoken. The fans tell the public what they feel. And I think that's another reason why Nas has come out so frequently recently, because he's feeling the love. You know what I mean? Like when you continuously getting beat down by these publications, these media outlets and all that, you start thinking, well, shit, maybe people ain't really fucking with me like that. You know what I'm saying? But he sees that it's different.
You remember when he dropped Stillmatic and he came on 106 in Park, and he was literally taken aback at how much people like were clapping and appreciating him, and he said, "This is crazy. I don't get a lot of love." I'm thinking the dude that made Illmatic and It Was Written doesn't get a lot of love from the hip hop community. What the fuck?
He gets a lot of love from the hip hop community. He just wasn't seeing it because there's so many of these institutions that, I mean, listen, I know I said this earlier. Imagine sitting in the audience after you made Illmatic at the Source Awards, the 95 Source Awards, and you win nothing? After everybody's telling you what you did was just game-changing, groundbreaking, that this publication gave you 5 mics. You sit at their award show and you get shut out. You sitting next to the Wu-Tang and all these guys, and they bigging you up. You know how much Ray and Ghost love Nas. They sitting here telling you, yo, man, this was your, and you win nothing? That's
We love
deflated.
Nas. It ain't just Ray and Ghost. He's just probably closer to Ray
But
and
you know
Ghost.
what
Like,
I'm saying? Like Method Man
yeah.
has done it said in interviews how much that I mean they love him so much that they were going at people that was biting him on their own album.
Because much like him, they're MCs, and he's an MC. Like Mike of the MCs, he's an MC's MC. That's why all the MCs who are MCs gravitate towards him. Even Jay. Listen to how many times Jay referenced Nas. Like, because Jay's an MC. He knows who Nas is and his weight. And here's the thing about it, Mike. You want to know what? As a Nas super fan, I guess you would say, I am so happy and almost relieved that he made this project. Like, I like King's Disease. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great effort. And I don't feel like he needed this. But, like,
this is icing on the cake.
This is the album that we've been wanting him to make. And you want to know what I found myself thinking about in terms of his classic status? I'm going to bring up one of our favorite albums in terms of what it reminds me of, in terms of a lot of things, in terms of the vibe, the feel, the musicality, the beginning to end player of it. Be by Common, Mike. It reminds me of Be by Common.
It's a no pun intended, a resurrection. It's a reinvigorated effort, and it's refreshing in that way. L. Penn says, remember, Jay has to have writers under his wing. Elliott Wilson, who was the editor at The Source and ran XXL. Yes, this is true. Yeah. Is known as a Jay fan and to the highest order. He posted his bias review on It Was Written on Instagram. Oh, that's right. He wrote hold on. Elliott Wilson wrote the It Was Written review?
Did he write the It Was Written review?
I'll go back and check that out, but that's telling. You know, another person that Jay has in the media too is Angie Martinez.
Oh yeah, you've been.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ain't gonna touch that.
Nas never wanted to play the media game. He
Hold on, Mike. When he's talking about Elliott Wilson's review, is he talking about the 4 mic review and The Source for It Was Written?
I'm gonna have to go research that, but I think so because I think at the time Elliott Wilson was at The Source because he didn't get the XXL until like the 2000s, I believe. Right. He said Nas never wanted to play the media game, and Biggie said Nas should have won the Lyricist of the Year award. Yeah, we were talking about that. Ghost called him the golden child at the verses. He did.
I told you, he said, every time I see Nas, it's like that nigga blessed by God or something.
It's real, man. But again, when artists tell you what it is, the artists and the fans tell you what it is. I mean, and no disrespect to the young man who wrote that Pitchfork Media bullshit review. I'm sorry. But what you have to say on that level, if you have criticisms on the effort, be respectful even in your criticism, understanding what this person means to not only the culture, the fans, but other artists as well. You know, and this album didn't warrant a trash review to trash it. Come on, man.
Mike, I want you to understand something about what you just said about Ghost. Let's talk about Ghost briefly right quick and who Ghost is, because I still didn't clear this up. When I said Jada was, the best MC coming out of New York, not named, and I named Nas, Rakim, Big, J, and KRS, I got to put Ghost ahead of Kiss.
Of course.
And I want to clear that up right quick. And let's talk about Ghost, because Ghost is one of the centerpieces of Enter the Wu-Tang. He is arguably the biggest star on Wu-Tang Forever. He is the co-author of The Purple Tape, or at least the supreme guest appearance artist. He is the author of Iron Man, Supreme Clientele, Bulletproof Wallets, and Fish Scale. This dude looks up to Nas as an MC. What we talking about?
Okay, let me get in the chat real quick. Shout out to Lex P. We got Lex P in the building. L. Penn says, great podcast, by the way. Thank you for the love. We appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. Tell some friends, too, man, because these hip-hop discussions are great. This actually started off as a conversation about something else and evolved to the fact that everybody's been against Nas since day one. Teran Mosley says, these outlets don't be knowing about Nas music. Clown shit.
We about to let them know. I bet they're going to know when this starts circulating and the article starts circulating, because I'm damn sure about to drop it on Twitter and tag them in it so they can't say they didn't see it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Everybody in the room right now, make sure y'all go to accordingtohiphop.com and look at Coop's review on the album. And yeah, go
Yeah.
Go to this young man's page. Let's see. He is on Twitter. His name is Stephen Curse, and make sure you let him know what you think about his
No,
6.1
I ain't
King's
worried
disease.
about them.
No. I'm talking to the fans right now. I'm talking to we got 38 people in the chat right now. Make sure y'all go to Pitchfork Media and let them know what you think about them giving Nas's King's disease to a 6.1 out of 10. And while you're at it, go to accordingtohiphop.com and check out our review. Coop just gave it a 5 out of 5. Classic music.
Start tagging all these clown ass publications that start doing clown ass shit. Let us know.
Yeah, definitely, man. Love Me More says that Elliot said on IG that he got it wrong about It Was Written. He was one of those media guys who didn't like It Was Written. I don't think he actually did the review. I was just looking it up. I'll say the name of the person that did the review. Lex P said, I tried to write for Pitchfork Media some time ago. They probably wouldn't let you say anything positive about Nas.
Right.
So, all right. So the person that did the review was Mark Landis. He gave It Was Written 4 mics in the source. And you're talking about the Vibe review, right? I don't know who wrote that.
It's a 4.5 mic album.
Yeah, man. But again, Nas ain't gonna get that, man. He slipped through the cracks with It Was Written, not It Was Written, Illmatic when they gave him 5. Miss Info did that. And it's interesting that Miss Info wrote that review and she did it under another alias or something, which is so wild, man. Like, what, you can't straight up give Nas a great review?
You want to know what I thought was one of the funniest things that ever happened? Is that, the Source went through their power struggle and stuff, and all that stuff was going on in the early 2000s when the Jay and Nas beef was going on.
Right.
When Illmatic got 5 mics, I want to say her name right, Kim Osorio, who ended up being the editor-in-chief of The Source. And I'm not sure if she was at the time. I think she was the editor-in-chief of The Source. And I think part of why Illmatic got 5 mics was because she was trying to reset some of the things internally that had been corrupted. And for her, like, Illmatic was kind of putting her stamp and resetting the bar and letting people know, like, no, this is still a rap publication about the culture. So, like, Nas is great. This, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then she was probably looking back at the fact that It Was Written got 4 mics. I Am got 3.5 mics. Nostradamus got 3 mics. Right.
Well, L Penn says Elliot did it for a different magazine. He reposted the review on the 20th anniversary and was straight biased. But he took pride in it, and it was weird. You know what? We're going to go look that up because that's wild, man. That Elliot Wilson is, backtracking. Like, what's Mike, to hear? Like you said, the fans felt how they felt.
Here's what I don't understand. How can you hear records like The Message and I Gave You Power and Take It in Blood and Silent Murder and The Setup and Shootouts and Live Nigga Rap? I'm not talking about any singles. And think that project's not stellar. Those are all stellar songs I named. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's political, and I'm gonna quote Eminem. And you guys can get your tape recorders for this. You fucked me out of my mics twice. I let it slide. I said I wouldn't hold my fucking breath to get a 5. It was like when he said you I don't know why Dre get fucked on the Chronic. Probably because I was on it. And it's real because it's like, come on, man. Are we going to go retroactively give the Chronic 4? What they give it? 4 mics initially? They gave 4.5. They gave it 4.5. They gave Doggy Style 4. And, clearly that was about not giving a West Coast album a 5.
No, that was about not rating it as high as the Chronic too, because this is what I'm saying. When you start the fuckery, you can't end the fuckery. The Chronic was still ringing bells even when Doggy Style came out. So giving Doggy Style a 4 seemed appropriate because they're looking at it. Oh well, but we don't know who this Snoop Dogg is yet. Still, this is probably a Dr. Dre thing, and so 4. But it's like, no. How about 5 and 5?
And the fact that 2001 didn't get it either. It's like, okay. And no disrespect, but the Lil Kim album that got 5 mics in the source is not better than 2001. The Bun B album that got 5 mics in the source is not better than 2001. And I love Scarface, But The Fix is not better than 2001 either. And it's like, it seems like there's something going on, you know what I mean, for certain people to not cross that bar. And it's no coincidence that the only West Coast artist to ever get 5 mics in the 90s was Ice Cube when he made his album in New York.
His most, yes.
And he made his album in New York.
Hey, Mike, they gave The Diary 4 mics by Scarface. That's part of why they gave him 5 for The Fix. Anybody that know Face know that The Diary is art. Mike, you know how I feel about The Diary?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, man. But again, it seems like Nas, for whatever reason, has been on the other end of that political side. And I think that, you know, we kind of went over it in the show and people in the chat know. Nas doesn't really fit the status quo, and even when he seems to be fitting the status quo, they know at any given moment he can flip the script on you. And so they don't want to credentialize Nas too much. But the fact that y'all are trashing Nas recently has just become so blatant that we as the fans just can't let that happen. Anything you got to say in closing? I know we've kind of gone over our time, but this needed to be talked about.
No, it's Nas, and it's some culture. Not, I wouldn't say appropriation isn't the right word. I think more misappropriation or miseducation.
Well, what I want to say in closing, make sure y'all go to Pitchfork Media's article and give your thoughts on that. But also go to accordingtohiphop.com and check out Coop's review. He did an incredible review on it, and you know, let's let that be the narrative that this album is what we know it is, as opposed to these bogus reviews for this album. And, you know, for Stephen Curse, man, I get it. You work for these publications, you write for these publications, but we would love for you to come on the show and, you know, tell us why you feel the way you felt about the effort, because it seemed a little bit biased, you know?
Hey, Mike, I'm going to tell you something else I remember from that 96 Vibe review, and this is going to make you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
They shitted on Nas is coming. They were like, Nas is coming, but where is he going?
Yo, Lex P says trap music got robbed of 5 mics. I ain't mad at that assessment, especially if we're talking about the Naked Truth and Bun B's Trill OG getting 5 mics. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But again, you know, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like reviewing albums is an easy thing. It's not. But when you get out there and you're sitting here just from the jump trashing an album that's a quality album for weird reasons, come on, man. We got to be responsible.
And I also want to say this, you know, like, you got to eat the food sometime. Like I told you, that dude called me out live about my Port of Miami 2 review and the Nasir review, like live while we was like, you know, he's like, ain't you the dude that did the Port of Miami? I was like, oh, live? You going to call me out live? I was like, yeah, I did a bad job. I should have done better.
Well, we got 42 people in the room right now, man. I hate to cut it off at such a high point, but goddamn. Yeah, we got to go. But yeah, definitely make sure you go to accordingtohiphop.com and check out Coop's review of Nas's King's Disease 2. And we swear this will probably be the last time we talk about this album for a minute. I do think we're due for a recent episode of updating the Album of the Year candidates. Westside Gunn's dropping next week. There's a few things that's dropping tomorrow. I know Talib just dropped his album with Diamond D. That happened. And we got a few things that we're dropping tomorrow as well. So
looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it, man. Look forward to hollering at y'all tomorrow. We'll keep everybody updated. And y'all have a good one, man. Enjoy your Thursday.
Ghost looks up to Nas.